PM. Let me know in the chat. Can you hear me, guys? How are you? Good morning, good night, good evening, wherever you are. Saddle up and rise your unicorns to the moon. Big congratulations, guys. The 100th ETH unicorn was recently minted. It's showtime. Amazing to hear. But today and right now, it's going to be all about Ordinals. Ordinals. We're coming to Ordinals later. Ordinals. What is it? How do they work? Why does it matter? What does it mean for Zen? And who's your daddy? I'm your daddy. Let's go. So there's a lot going into this. This is very much narrative explosion going on right now, both in terms of culture and in terms of tech. And we want to know everything about it. And developments are occurring very fast. So we are following these developments very closely, and we want to participate as much as possible as well. But now I will do my best to get you up to speed with the most necessary aspects of not only Ordinals, but also the tech behind what makes all of this possible, and how these things really work and what they are. And these are some like fundamental building blocks that is pretty good to understand in order to be able to navigate in this space. Because there's rumors. There's rumors, guys. There's rumors around town that we might be visited by a very special guest on the stream. Let's see, guys. But anyway, here is the agenda for today. We're going to talk about let me just make this a little bit bigger. We're going to start by talking a little bit about what Bitcoin really is, and what is a blockchain really, just to get everyone on the right path to understand what Ordinals are. Because there's a lot of people I know in our own community which are very new to Bitcoin, and many have been in the EVM world only. So I will go back to the roots of what Bitcoin is, and also what the blockchain is, basically. Because in order to understand Ordinals, you do have to understand some very basics. Vitalik is the papa, but you need to know that Satoshi is the granddaddy. So then we're going to start with that, and then we're going to talk about ordinal theory. What are ordinals? Also, we're going to talk about fungibility, because fungibility. Hello, guys. Good to see you. So many people in the chat. So many celebrities. I love you all. Fungibility is a key aspect when it comes to money. And this is being a bit challenged, the fungibility of Bitcoin. I'm going to explain why. Then we're going to talk about ordinals as NFTs. We need to understand the UTXO model versus the account model. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how an ordinal is transferred. We're going to talk about immutability, scarcity, and storage, and what makes this whole possible. Taproot, which is the latest soft fork for Bitcoin. And then, very interesting, we'll talk about narratives. And if you stay to the very end, I'm going to show you how you can inscribe something on the Bitcoin blockchain, and it's going to stay there forever. So let's go, guys. We have so much to talk about. So let's jump right in. So I want to begin with just like some very basics, and like talk a little bit about how Satoshis and Bitcoin is mined in the first place, because Bitcoin is a currency. Bitcoin is money. We're going to talk about the difference of those things later. And Bitcoin is also a payment network. So Bitcoin also has a coin distribution model, so to speak. So Bitcoin is rewarded to miners who verify transactions in the network. So transactions happen, and miners run servers which calculate and thus secure the network, and are in doing so incentivized to get these rewards in Bitcoin. So I have a model which I explain to a normie, because we can all be better at explaining. If we're serious about adoption, we can all be better at explaining stuff, because it very easily gets very complicated fast. And if you're explaining something to someone for the first time, you don't want to overcomplicate it. And that's why I like to use these shapes, because these shapes are very easy to remember. And this is basically a way for me to explain Bitcoin, where I capture all the most important fundamentals of what it is. And this is something that can be good to refresh, especially if you're new to Bitcoin. So this is a super simplified model, but it does have some value. So the way I like to describe it is that Bitcoin is a globally distributed, decentralized ledger, right? So if we begin with a ledger, what is a ledger? A ledger is basically transactions going in and transactions going out. And it's a record of those transactions happening. So that's basically, if you're an accountant, and I know everyone here is an accountant, you know exactly what a ledger is. You can think of it as like your household economy, right? So you have your salary coming in and you spend more of it every month, for sure, 100% on cookies and Coca-Cola or whatever. So it's like transactions coming in and transactions going out. These transactions that are happening in this ledger are then distributed all around the world to a decentralized network. And the reason why I have this hierarchy, this triangle, is because we don't want it, right? We want to change it. We want to make the important distinction that it's actually not a hierarchy. We're going to flatten it. That's the whole reason why we have this invention of blockchain in the first place. And I think many people forget it. It's because we don't want a hierarchy. We want a decentralized network. We want no middlemen. No guy who's going to dictate all the rules for everyone else. So that's basically a very like simple explanation. So how then does this and also a very important thing to discuss is the fact that what was the problem really that Satoshi solved? Well, he solved the problem of double spend, the so-called double spend problem. So if you think of the internet as decentralized, it used to be more decentralized, it's more centralized now, but a network for the exchange of information, then Bitcoin and crypto is networks where we can exchange value. So ultimately, this is what we want to do. I mean, it's quite ridiculous, really. All we want to do is be able to transact value peer-to-peer with self-custody, with no intermediaries in between. It's really like super simple if you narrow it down. So Satoshi Nakamoto figured out a way how you can find consensus in the exchange of value between two parties with no middleman. Because if you think about it, like if you compare it to exchange of information, I can send an email to you, but I can copy paste that same email to you and send it to 100 other people at the same time. So I can't really do that with Bitcoin. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to trust each other at all. We both agree on that if I send you a Bitcoin, it's yours now. It's not mine, because we don't have to trust each other. It's a trustless system. Don't trust, verify. So that's very important to understand. So then the question is, how does Bitcoin work in terms of like coin distribution, consensus, verification, and security? And this is where the concept of a miner is. I don't know how a miner looks like, but I think he looks like something like this. So what a miner does is basically he tunes into the network and he listens to all of the transactions that goes on in the network during 10 minutes, average 10-minute blocks. And he uses his servers and he makes them run all of these calculations to make this ledger add up to something that makes sense. And then he includes them. He builds a block out of them. And the thing is that if he calculates right, he builds this block and he broadcasts it out to the whole network, the other nodes, and then they will say, oh, damn, Marcus, the miner, he was right. He nailed it. That's actually correct. So if he is correct and enough nodes verify that it's actually correct, that he added the numbers up, he will win. He was the first one to do it correctly. He will win a reward. So that's his incentive. And we have to realize that why would he do so? What's his incentive to actually calculate this? Well, his incentive is that he has the sunk cost already. He has already paid for the servers. He bought half of Iceland. And he needs return on his investments. So that's why he is incentivized to be the first one to actually calculate it. So this is the process of block production. And this solution gets then added to a blockchain consisting of 10-minute blocks. Ranging back all the way to the Genesis block in 2009. So you can actually download the whole blockchain. I think it's like 460 or 470 gigabytes in total. The whole blockchain, the whole Bitcoin blockchain, the whole ledger. It's basically just a ledger of transactions in and out. This so-called, we can call them like sub-ledgers that build up a big ledger. And you can download them to your computer. So that's where transparency comes in the network, right? Because you have all the transactions that's been going on in the network since Genesis. So you can try to do that with the Federal Reserve's ledger or something like that. And wish you good luck. So like that's the most simple explanation of what Bitcoin is and what blockchain is that I can think about. So it's all built on incentives, really. So what we also have to understand is that there's something called halving. So each 4 years there's a halving. Like how much does the miner get for each of these blocks that he is producing? Well, initially it was 50 Bitcoin per verified block, and every 4 years there's a halving. So the mining difficulty increases with time. Right now you can get 6.25 if you verify a block Bitcoin. And in what is it, next year we're going to have another halving, so it's going to be down to 3.125. So that's what we call mining difficulty. And here you can see the supply of Bitcoin is also very interesting, very important to understand that the supply was this looks just like Zen, guys. It's a disinflationary curve. It's almost like Satoshi knew what we were going to do with Zen. he was a visionary. So you can see that the supply has emissions schedule, so to speak, that it's harder and harder to get. So it's gonna pan out, so to speak. So year 2140. There will be no more Bitcoin to be mined. So the whole network is thought to live on just transaction fees at that time. So here we can also see on mempool.space, guys. So this is going to be your best friend in the Bitcoin world. This awesome site, because here you can actually see the blocks being produced in real time. It's awesome. So these are the blocks that have been produced, and these are the up and coming blocks. So here we can see the next block that is going to be produced, that's in production already. And note here also, we have some interesting data here. So here you have the block number, here you have megabytes. So what is this? Each block can currently fill 4 megabytes. So you can remember this because we're going to talk about this later. Which is very key and important to understand. But basically, guys, this is just the basics. What is Bitcoin? What is blockchain? Just to have something on your feet as we move along to the next topic. Now, when we know this, now we can talk about ordinals, ordinal theory. What is an ordinal? What's the fuss about? So the first thing, hello, guys. Good to see you. Good to see so many celebrities. Och Kim Jong-un is here also. Number of things. How you doing, buddy? Crypto for Freda is always ready. Thank you so much, Crypto Profeta, for joining me in my last stream. Now, ordinal theory. What is an ordinal? So first we have to realize that 1 Bitcoin is equal to 100 million Satoshi. So one single Bitcoin is divisible. I've written this down so you can also like print screen or take the text. 1 Bitcoin is divisible just like dollars, and the smallest unit is called Satoshi. You can also say sats. So ordinals, what is that? Ordinals is a numbering scheme for Satoshis that allows tracking and transferring individual sats. Interesting. These numbers are called ordinal numbers. Ordinals is a way for us to identify individual sats. Ordinals are serial numbers for Satoshis. Ordinal protocol describes a way to tell sats apart and then attach something to them. So text or image, for example. And then you can send them around the world with this piece of data attached to it. So I'm going to explain this a little bit more in detail. But every single Satoshi has a serial number. Ordinal numbers gives them position in a list, 1, 2, 3, etc. Serial numbers for Satoshis are assigned in the order they are mined. They give the position of the Satoshi in the entire supply. Amazing. So you can think of it like this. If you imagine this Bitcoin supply being this thing here, it looks like cigarettes. So here we started 2009. Not we. I am not Satoshi officially. But here it will end in 2140. And we are around here right now because, you know, it's this inflationary curve. So right now we mined about 19.3, something like that, million of a total of 21 million, because it's hard capped at 21 million. So 21 million Bitcoin is equal to 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis, and therefore also potential ordinals. And basically you can think of it like this. So they are mined in order, bam, 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 bam. And if you take one of these Satoshis, like just grab your hand and just take one of them, each one of these Satoshis now have a serial number. They have a position in the total supply. So the first block created ordinal 0 to 5 billion minus 1, because you start with 0. And so there's two things basically to this. Number one, it's that you have this serial number. Each Satoshi now gets a serial number. Number two, that you also can attach data to that serial number. So it's basically not more complicated than that in theory. However, this opens up a whole new world. There's no end to the possibilities. Have you seen Cable Guy? So the ordinal, so like in the middle here, there's 1.05 quadrillion Satoshis. So blah, blah, blah. So there are as many ordinals as there are Satoshis. They're created in order they are mined, blah, blah, blah. So why do we call it ordinals? Satoshis are numbered in the order which they're mined and transferred from transaction inputs to transaction outputs, first in, first out. Both the numbering scheme and the transfer scheme rely on order. The number scheme on the order in which Satoshis are mined, and the transfer scheme on the order of transaction inputs and outputs. Thus the name ordinal, so it comes from order. Ordinal theory does not require a separate token, another blockchain, or any changes to Bitcoin. It works right now. So we're going to talk about this a little later, like this whole thing with inputs and outputs, because this is a key difference from Ethereum. But basically, you can summarize it like ordinals gives the ability to track individual Satoshis and the ability to inscribe arbitrary data on chain. And when this data and this ordinal is moved around, the data moves around with the SAT as well. So the guy who came up with ordinal theory is a guy called Casey Rodheimer. And he has a video on YouTube. If you search for Casey Rodheimer, he explains this. I think it's very well explaining. I think it's very well worth that you watch this. So write it down. He explains basically this and a lot more about how the theory behind ordinals came to be, and yeah, etc., etc. So, but this is basically the most fundamental part of it. So big congrats, or big, what do you say, thumbs up, Casey, for inventing this. Now let's talk about fungibility, guys, and money, because when we introduce ordinal theory to Bitcoin, we need to be aware how it relates to the concept of Bitcoin's fungibility. Okay, so part of what makes Bitcoin great is the fact that Bitcoin is fungible, which is a requirement for it to work as money. So we also must be aware that always we need to separate about money and currency. But either if we're talking about money or currency, fungibility is something that is very, very key in order to understand. So like you remember from our talks with my video with NFTs, what it is. We talked about what separates a fungible token from a non-fungible token. And the fungible token is interchangeable with one another, whereas a non-fungible token is not directly interchangeable with one another. But when we talk about fungibility, because this is like very interesting now, fungibility then means that one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, okay, interchangeable with each other. And since one Bitcoin equals 100 million Satoshis, that also means that 100 million Satoshis equal to 100 million Satoshis, okay, which also means that one Satoshi is equal to one Satoshi. So therefore, one Bitcoin is more than one Satoshi. Okay, welcome to math at Sun Education. It seems pretty logical, right? Like of course it must be so, because one Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshi. So one Bitcoin must be more than one Satoshi. It's in the rules of the fungibility aspect of things. But here's the thing though, is this really the case anymore? Yes, it is, but also no. So there's a very funny example of where this aspect came to be, because someone decided to inscribe a poop emoji into a Satoshi, and it became an ordinal. And this poop emoji was sold for 20,000, and that at the time, and it still is worth more than one Bitcoin. It was worth 1.2 Bitcoin. So it was described here and there, but basically this poop emoji sold for more than one Bitcoin. So in this particular case, the poop emoji set was one Bitcoin is not worth more than one Satoshi, which is quite interesting. So like how can this be so? Well, it's simply because the fact that you have you've added value into an individual Satoshi. So the whole fungibility aspect, it totally now depends on the situation. So let me describe with another example. Here I go. If you have $2 bills, for instance, okay, $1 bill and another dollar bill, they're both dollar bills, dollar bill, yeah. They're interchangeable with each other. Okay, you have this one, I have this one. Let's change it for whatever reason. It's totally fine. Now, what happens if I do my autograph here? Okay, I will write Zen Zhu. It's super hard with this pen. Anyway, I did my autograph here. So now what I've done is I've added a value to my dollar bill. I made it more valuable. Okay, some salty hexagon will say I destroyed it and it's worth shit now, and it's a scam. But I added the value to it. But so the thing is, it's still a dollar bill. It's still fungible. If I can convince someone, it's not too much dirt on it. It's still fungible with another dollar bill. It still fills that purpose. However, it's still, if it's an autograph of someone you really respect, like Wayne Gretzky or Pamela Anderson or Jack Levin or someone, you're probably not going to change it to another dollar bill. This is basically the same thing that's happening with Bitcoin now. You have a Satoshi and another Satoshi, and suddenly what we are able to do now is we are able to attach value to these individual Satoshis. So basically you can say that Satoshis are fungible, but when you inscribe on them, when you attach data on them, then they become non-fungible at the same time. And then it's completely up to the market as well to decide if you think there's any value to that at all. So basically you can take a Satoshi, a UTXO, sign on it, and it becomes more valuable. So this, I want you guys to like think about this and understand when it comes to like the fungibility aspects, because we've been talking so much about it as well. So and it's quite central to understand the following concepts. Now, ordinals as NFTs. So ultimately, ordinals now make it possible for us to have NFTs on Bitcoin. Much more, but this is basically the first use case for Bitcoin as I see it. And how is it so? Well, let's look at an NFT. We have our amazing Unicorn here. It's an NFT. What NFTs need, they need to be attached to something on chain. Okay, they need to have an owner, and it needs to be transferable. So basically, that's some requirements for it to function as a non-fungible token. Now, in order for this to happen, the NFT needs identifiers. Okay. Now, Bitcoin doesn't have any stable identifiers natively. Addresses are temporary with the UTXO model. Okay, it's not like Ethereum. I'm going to explain to you why. On Ethereum, you can attach an NFT to an address that you have. In UTXO, the address is changing every time you make a transaction. So your wallet generates a bunch of addresses lasting a short amount of time, and the outputs, the UTXOs, UTXO stands for unspent transaction output. They're destroyed when they're used as an input in a transaction, and new ones are created as outputs as transactions. So as a result, you don't have any stable identifier on Bitcoin natively that you can attach anything to. But this is where ordinals come into the game, and this is why they are so fundamental to the chains, because what ordinals do, as we just talked about, is that they identify individual sats, right? So therefore, we can now use ordinals to make NFTs on Bitcoin. So basically, that's how it all works. And you can either do this like a little bit more like complex, but this is just like so yeah, you can now link this. You can take your monkey picture, and there's two ways to assign it to an ordinal. You can either do it on-chain or off-chain. So either you do it with an on-chain commitment with a hash of the JPEG in a Bitcoin transaction, or an off-chain as a digital signature. You have your ordinal, but the point is you can then transfer it using normal Bitcoin transactions. And once they are transferred, they are retaining their ordinal number. So basically it's a way that we can take our monkey picture and then assign it to an ordinal. And once this ordinal is moving around, it will stay there, which is one of the requirements, that it needs to be transferable and it needs to have an owner. So this is something you don't have to think about so much, but for the privacy lovers, it's also important to point out that you don't need to like expose the content of your NFT on chain if you don't want to. So the content could live completely off chain. You can trade your content, link to ordinals on chain without anyone seeing your content. So you have an ordinal NFT that's just like have a meaning among like your friends or somebody. Nobody needs to know what it is, but they can see your transaction on chain, but they don't need to know what you're doing. So that's basically just to comment. Don't focus too much on that right now. Now, what's also important to point out that NFTs on Bitcoin is not really something new. Like in I was in a Bitcoin Max conference in 2020, and that's when I first heard about NFTs. But I didn't think it was a thing. I didn't understand it at first because they were talking like baseball cards online or something. I didn't connect the dots. I don't think many did. But 2021, that's when it really took off for Ethereum. But already back in 2016, you had Bitcoin NFTs on Bitcoin, and Rare Pepes is the most like famous example of that. So basically, NFTs were designed by Bitcoiners for Bitcoin in the first place, using they used a protocol and still do a protocol called Counterparty. So it still exists and you can use it, and mostly used for like projects like the Rare Pepes. And there are like a lot of differences in comparison to what you can do now, but the most significant thing right now is that you can store them on chain, and you can have a lot more data attached to it. So that's like the thing that makes a more significant difference. Actually, I have a friend that's been an early contributor to the Rare Pepes and still is. So maybe we can arrange to have a stream or something about this, because he knows everything about this, about the history of Rare Pepes and Bitcoins on chain. And he's really, so what he's doing now is basically super excited, because suddenly he can take all of his Pepes and then he starts inscribing them on the chain instead. So that's very interesting. Now, here's what we need to do. We need to talk about like the differences, because this is okay. If you only been on Ethereum, that's you like Vitalik is your daddy only, and you don't know your Greta and the Satoshi at all. Then your mind is going to be blown about this, because on Ethereum you have your one address. And suddenly, I'm going to be very annoying with you now and tell you that you have to change your address all the time, or the system wants to do it. So we have to separate. If we're going to work with Bitcoin, we have to learn what the difference is between the UTXO model and the account model. I'm going to read. So also, I want you guys to like read this and understand it. But let's do it together. For digital money to be useful, it needs to be transferable. Okay, we talked about that. The transfer of money on a blockchain is initiated by the owner creating a transaction. The transaction informs the network about how much money is changing hands and who the new owner is. So different models, accounting models used in blockchain. So most blockchains actually use the UTXO model for accounting. And the second model is used to attract user balances like Ethereum, the account model. So these two models we separate. A system is described as stateful only if it's configured to remember preceding events or user interaction. The retained information is defined as the state of a system. Hence, a blockchain qualifies as a stateful system. Its entire purpose is to record past events of user and user interactions. With each new block, the system undergoes a state transition that happens according to the state transition logic defined in its protocol. So every blockchain, no matter if it uses the UTXO or account model, follows this scheme. This is important to understand. The user interactions, mostly transactions, are broadcast to the network, and with each new block, a set of them is permanently recorded, right? The balances of the transacting parties are updated when the system transitions to a new state. The difference between the UTXO and the account model lies in the way the bookkeeping is handled, okay? With bookkeeping, we mean recording the state and transitioning from one state to another. So basically what this means is both models are doing the same thing, but the difference comes into how that is recorded. And here we can see a picture, basically, how an account model, a UTXO model works. So with the UTXO model, you have your Bitcoins, you have your Satoshis here in this model. You make a transaction, and part of it goes here, part of it goes here, and part of it goes here. But the point is, everything goes. This little poor guy, he gets nothing left. And it goes on like that. With the account model, you have account A, and then you do something with the state, and then you move some funds, and suddenly you move funds from A to B, and then continues like this. But you still have the account A. It's still the same account following along the whole time. So this is basically like, and there's been like 14 years of discussions of this is a good model or not, and pros and cons. But there's like with the UTXO model, there are advantages and there's disadvantages, and the same thing with the account model. There's pros and cons with everything. So advantages, it's simplicity, in the sense that they are uniquely referenced and completely consumed upon spending. They can be verified in parallel. Okay, we talked about this with the account model, right? That transactions must happen sequentially. Privacy is also something that's very key and easy to understand, right? Like if you know my address, then you can, but if it's changing all the time, it's going to be harder for you for that reason. The problem is like it's also very, like for user, it's very confusing, at least initially, because the addresses are changing all the time. It's like, what the hell? and also, this is one of the reasons why smart contracts are limited in the UTXO model. Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts yet. So the account model, of course, also has pros and cons. It's more flexible. You can basically, since you don't send anything, the transactions sizes are smaller. There's dependencies on the input state. This thing with the sequentiality, and also in terms of privacy for the same reasons that UTXO. So basically, what you should do to understand, like I just touched my toe a little bit in the differences between UTXO model and account model. But what needs to be very clear for you is if we're doing something on Bitcoin, you need to understand that it's the UTXO accounting model. Okay, so it's the bookkeeping system which affects you as a user, because you need to understand that your address is constantly changing. Let's talk a little bit how this connects to something like how an ordinal is transferred. Because remember, ordinals, as we talked about, sorry, I'm gonna zoom in. Ordinals made it possible for us. It made the ability to track individual satoshis, right? And ability to inscribe arbitrary data on chain, and so on and so forth. So here's a transaction I did to Jack, and as you can see here, this is how a normal Bitcoin transaction looks like. You have inputs, and you're making the transaction, and the result of the transaction is outputs. Oh, sorry. Is outputs. Okay, so here you can see that I took some sats and I sent some of them to Jack because I owed him for lunch or something. No, we actually played around. We actually like tried to figure out in this example, like, okay, if I have an ordinal here or here, like, and if I send it to you, then where does it end up? Where is it? How can I track it? So here we can see that some of my inputs went to Jack, and some went back to another address that I owned, and some of it was paid to the miner to pay for that fee to include that transaction into a block. So you have to pay for those. It's called transaction fees. You know exactly what I'm talking about. How? But like the question is like, where's the ordinal? How can we track it? And there's a few things. So ordinals are transferred with a simple algorithm. So each transaction is a list of inputs and outputs, right? We talked about that. So you can imagine each output contains a list of ordinals, and you assign the ordinals in the input to the empty ordinal slot in the output. So the first ordinal in the input gets assigned to the first slot in the output. So the first time you read this, you're like, what the hey, you say? It doesn't make sense. And here's what you need to know. This is something that's very new for everybody, but the development of being able to track your individual ordinal to your individual Satoshi, it's going so fast. So all of the different infrastructure that are handling this, they are coming up with solutions for you to be able to. There wasn't a use case for them to track individual sets before, so there's a lot happening for user to really see the flow of where your ordinals end up. So that's basically number one. And I'm going to show you later in the example how Sparrow works. And there we figured out how we can track the individual. Sparrow is a native Bitcoin wallet. It's I can recommend it. It's very good. It's good for security. There's also like web apps like Xverse, etc. And there is ways to, like, they make it very easy for user to see like your individual ordinal where it is. But you have to be aware of it, and you have to be careful. I'm telling you this because if you're using a wallet that doesn't make it distinctly clear where the ordinal is for you, you might send a set of the poop emoji that's worth 28K to a miner, basically, or something else like that. So but the most important thing for you to, if this is the first time you see something, don't focus on ordinals. Focus on the aspect of UTXO. Like, you have an address, you do a transaction, and suddenly you have a new address. Like, what the hell? But that's how it works. Inputs, transaction makes an output. Input, output. So that's the reason for the name UTXO. It stands for unspent transaction output. So it's like the output of what you haven't spent at all. Now, we're going to talk about like, now your mind is probably like, okay, wow, I can put a poop emoji on Bitcoin. Awesome. But it's really like, there's so much going into it. It's so exciting because like, if we think about it in terms of immutability, scarcity, and storage, each one of this is a science in itself when it comes to ordinals and like this new possibility with Bitcoin. Because first of all, there's many differences from Ethereum. Like, first of all, ordinals are forever. There's impossible to destroy. There's a way, but like in general, it's impossible to destroy. Basically, what it's data, it's JPEGs on chain, immutable, and you can't change them. So what you have to understand is that most NFTs on Ethereum, like before, like with the immutability aspect of it. So this poop emoji, it's going to be there forever. On every node's computer ever. So if everyone in the future that ever downloads the Bitcoin blockchain, it's basically going to be there. The most NFTs on Ethereum, they're stored off chain. Now, NFTs, as you know, they are fully on chain. So the NFTs, they make up, there's basically 3 lines of code that are generating the gradient of these NFTs. But most NFTs on Ethereum, they're basically stored in some kind of server somewhere. That's obviously most of the times like in a centralized server. So this is not an immutable storage of your NFT. But with NFTs it is. But you have to understand that with Ethereum, most NFTs are not. However, every ordinal, they are becoming inscribed with this data forever. So immutability aspect of it is very important. And this leads us to the scarcity aspect, because in total, there's 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis ordinals, right? So that's the theoretical limit of the amount of Satoshis or ordinals, it should say there. And then you think, like, how is that scarce? Because that's an insanely amount of high number. Now, scarcity lies in the fact that the process of inscription requires the ordinal to be inscribed into a block, okay? So even though there's billions and billions of these Satoshis floating around everywhere, if you want to inscribe some data of them, everyone has to go through this narrow door, which is in the block production, okay? And you have to pay for that. So it's the space in order for you to do this thing is limited, and that's what makes it scarce. So on Ethereum, you can issue an unlimited amount. On Bitcoin, you can't. So if you want to put like the actual image on file on Ethereum, it would be much more expensive. Right now, it's much cheaper on Bitcoin. Ethereum data storage is 20 times higher than Bitcoin storage. And eventually the price will move higher, but probably. But so the whole concept of like Bitcoin, the network, used as data storage. We've had like other projects like Filecoin and Arweave that are working with permanent file storage. But now Bitcoin might be the use case for using Bitcoin as a storage for data is quite interesting. So each block is limited to 4 megabytes. So again, with scarcity arrives due to the fact that you have to go through the process of inscription of the data into an ordinal, which is dependent on your willingness to pay for transactions to be included in a block, right? So right now, the blocks aren't filled. The limit is 4 megabytes. But if everyone is trying to inscribe poop emojis on the chain, the price is going to go up. So this in turn is dependent on the amount of data and your the amount of data you want to describe and your urgencies to do so. So that's very interesting. So like the interesting thing with this is that ordinals sort of have an inbuilt scarcity for all ordinals, which is very interesting. There's also one other point I was trying to make. It might come to me later. But anyway, here you can see the block production. So we have billions and billions of ordinals, but if you want to inscribe them, they need to be able to fit into a block. And here we can see the willingness. Are you willing to pay this much? And it's the ratio, which is determined in is sat per VB, so virtual byte. Basically, so here we can see like how much did it cost on average to inscribe something on this block, and they're limited to 4 megabytes. So we can see an uptrend in the usage of blocks, of like how much the blocks are being used. So it's very interesting. Now we're going to talk about Taproot. So this is like why is, so the question is, why is this a thing now? Like what wasn't this possible before? So the way I see it, there's basically two things that made this possible now. It's ordinal theory of Casey Rodarmor that invented this concept of this numbering system for individual sats. But before that, we had the Taproot upgrade, which is the latest soft fork for Bitcoin after SegWit. So what they wanted to do with Taproot was to change the Bitcoin system so it would introduce Schnorr signatures. So what is Schnorr signatures is the next question. And basically it's aggregate multiple signatures into one when a transaction has more than one originating address. So basically like multisig for Bitcoin, if you very much want to simplify it. But you can read up more on, I don't want to complicate it too much. It's also very new to me. I know exactly how they work, but I know that it's a thing. But I'm learning together with you guys. So Taproot is an upgrade to the Bitcoin network that facilitates more private and secure transactions while also improving scalability, blah, 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 blah. So it's an upgrade that makes this all possible. But the most important thing with it, by the way, like not so much how it works, but the most important thing that you need to understand is that it removed some of the size limits of Bitcoin transactions. Okay, so Bitcoin transactions has, or like Bitcoin scripts. So Bitcoin transaction has scripts attached to them. They were usually limited in the size that they could be, and Taproot removed some of these limits. So suddenly you could make a transaction really large and attach information to these transactions, and allowed accidentally for people to put JPEGs on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain. So important for you to understand is that This is something that has been made possible thanks basically to the Taproot upgrade and the Ordinal theory created by Casey. So to demonstrate this, these guys, Udi Wertheimer and Eric Wall, two guys that I think are really like very, they're really outspoken and very innovative and doing very interesting stuff with this new thing. They've been very early to realize that we can have fun with this, we can do stuff with this. So what they did was that they filled a whole block number 774628. They filled a whole block with this Taproot wizard image, which has a story in itself. We can talk about it later. But they demonstrated basically that you now could take a picture and fill a whole block if you wanted to, if you paid enough money for it. I think they paid like $18,000 or something like that, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty low amount of number in terms of like the history value of being able to do something like that. So I wrote down like exactly what, because I thought it was so interesting. They took the Taproot wizard, blew it up to 4 megabyte size, and filled an entire block with one single transaction with the JPEG attached to it. So you can put the actual but this is like you could do this before, but there was limits to it, and the Taproot allowed it to be much bigger. As we showed with this 4 megabyte transaction, the only limit that really exists is the limit of the size of the blocks. Since the block is limited to 4 megabyte, that's as much as we could fit into a transaction, but that's the only limit. It became the biggest Bitcoin transaction ever and the biggest block of all time. The previous record was 1 million back in 2015. So, and they explain also how to do that. You can take a screenshot if you want to capture my note. I think it was very interesting because if you can't really do it right now if you wanted to, because there's a limit of 400 megabytes per transaction. So like if you try to send something bigger than that, basically the node is going to reject it. But they explain how they did it. They basically reached out to a miner and agreed that they would propagate the transaction anyway somehow. But there's so much, guys, there's so much in this, and there's so much for us to dig down deeper into and learn. But if you're seeing this for the first time, what you need to know is this is made possible because of Taproot, because of this ordinal theory. There's interesting examples of people in the space who are really trying this to the limits to show the possibility of it. There's also, like, when we talk about narratives later, like the story, like, yeah, talk about that later. And also what you need to understand is this addresses. So here's the Bitcoin legacy addresses, and with the upgrades to Bitcoin, like now with the Taproot like addresses, which allows us to send ordinal, one important thing, you can beat up on these addresses and whatnot, but one important thing when you're sending something, if you're going to send something, you need to understand that it needs to be a Taproot ID, a Taproot wallet, and it starts. You can see here how they start differently. So a legacy address starts with 1, and then script with 3, and then SegWit with BC1Q, and then Taproot with BC1P. So for your ordinal to be able to be received, it needs to be a BC1P address. Okay, it's very important. It means that it's following the Taproot upgrade. Also, I can talk about SegWits some other time, because now time is just guys. There's so much to talk about. But let me move on for now and explain a little bit about what this means in terms of narratives, because like what is a narrative really? A narrative is basically a per definition, it's a spoken or written account of connected events. It's a story. So everything is basically a narrative. Like we're just telling stories to each other, and we're doing it as a community, and we have tech involved. So everything is basically that. And one of the narratives that we have right now is basically NFTs to Bitcoin. And I've explained to you exactly how we can make that happen. Like what are the key aspects for you to understand that makes this possible right now. And this NFTs to Bitcoin is of course like a super exciting thing, and I think it's going to be like one of the main drivers potentially leading into a bull run, because it's so exciting. Like here you can see the growth of ordinals right now. So it's very recently that this explosion happened, basically just a few weeks ago. So we're very early into this, guys. And when I see this, what I see when I study this chart, what do I see? I think back on how it was back in the days of DeFi summer 2020, back here. Okay, for those of you who remember, when the narrative that was leading us to the last bull run was basically DeFi and NFTs. But first of all, it was DeFi, because I remember here it looks like a flat line right now. Okay, but here in July 2020, this was an explosive chart. It looked bam, just like this, and this is when like DeFi really took like an accelerating course. It was just like boom, like why is so much money just flooding into this technology right now? It was really an explosive growth. And now it looks like nothing, and suddenly we have this whole multi-billion-dollar industry where we really utilize the power of decentralized finance, and we might take it a little bit for granted right now, but we didn't do this just like 3 years ago. It really happened within the last couple of years. So things can really take off like explosively. When I see these ordinals, it feels like exactly for me. I'm just telling you how I feel. That moment in time when DeFi exploded. I'm not saying this is going to. I'm just saying that there's something here that is making people very creative, very excited. I mean, Jai, we have been obsessed with ordinals for a few weeks now. It's just been mind blowing. It's so cool, really. So there's something here, because Bitcoin is the biggest network. It has the as you know, it's the biggest market cap. It's the best brand of crypto ever. Like every norm even knows what Bitcoin is. And here we can also see like the amount of users. It's just an explosive growth of users coming into DeFi. So the whole narrative of like NFTs to Bitcoin is one of the aspects that is very interesting to pay attention to right now, because this is something very explosive. Another thing that's very interesting with this is Bitcoin utility. Why is it so? Because Bitcoin is basically like what have you done with Bitcoin? It has its primary use case as a store of value, and it's awesome at it. But it hasn't really lived up to the white paper of being a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So if we think of now the store of value aspect versus also the narrative of being data storage and NFTs and stuff like that, and the fact that data storage on other networks is higher than on Bitcoin. So like right now the block space is available because the primary use case for Bitcoin is store of value. It's like it's holding it and not moving it. They sort of go like, this is what we wanted to do with Zen. We wanted something that you shouldn't be incentivized to hold it. You should want to, like, that's a very functioning cash if you think of it. If something is thought to appreciate a lot in value in a short amount of time, you're incentivized to hold it. So you should hold it, but then trade it for something else. In a way, like, but with Bitcoin, you've sort of been incentivized to hold it forever, which really like contradicts the aspect of being peer-to-peer cash money. So like if Ordinals catches on, it will get more expensive. And then the question is, so this is super interesting, because how would that look like long term? And Bitcoin, let's call them enthusiasts, they believe that Bitcoin will be so valuable, and transacting Bitcoin will be so desirable. So a Bitcoin transaction, Bitcoin transaction fees will be more valuable than anything else, and therefore outcompete other use cases of the blockchain. So if we want to like send monkey pictures to each other, it will simply not be worthwhile enough for us to pay that on-chain transaction with Bitcoin transaction fees, and compete with people that want to use Bitcoin for actual Bitcoin transactions. So, I mean, that could happen, who knows? But something that might be worrying to them or us, or however you want to see it, is that people might not choose to transact Bitcoin on chain. Maybe they will choose off-chain solutions such as Lightning or centralized exchanges or banks or whatever. Because in that case, JPEG transactions will be more popular. And that's what we're seeing now. If you look at the transactions on chain, users sending normal Bitcoin transactions, they're not really willing to compete with transactions that have attached data to them. That just might be hype or something, but it's something to pay attention to and to look at, because if we look at like the last amount of days and weeks here, the interest of ordinals are like super high. So they are probably because of that hype, or who knows, they are happy to pay those high transaction fees to get it moving, while we don't see so many normal Bitcoin transactions, and the ones we do see are not interested in paying so much higher fees. So right now it looks like Bitcoin, like the JPEG use case, is pricing out the rest. But guys, it's an interesting experiment. But what I think we should know is pay attention to the use case of this chain with these new capabilities. Nobody knows. Like we're just trying out stuff here for now. Who said that? My computer spoke to me in Swedish. That's strange. Someone did, at least. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Another interesting aspect is like DeFi on or with Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts. So like NFTs is like the first use case, but like how can we sort of circumvent the fact that Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts? And there's many interesting angles in how to look. By the way, like what we are discussing now, although people are picking up on it, people, we have to realize also, like, don't sleep on the Bitcoin network. There's huge amounts of people all around the world that are building interesting stuff. It's a whole ecosystem of people who are paying and building different solutions. So all of them, of course, are paying attention to what's going on right now. And like it's just going to be an explosive growth. So don't sleep on this, guys. I think we're going to be able to see a lot of interesting things coming out very soon. But of course, it's also going to take a very long time for people to mature in this new technology. But when it comes to Bitcoin, like an interesting thing with DeFi on Bitcoin is the fact that, okay, you don't have smart contracts, but more attention has been given to solutions like roll-ups or like you should look into like Rollkit, for instance, if you want to dig down deep more into it. But also, like you could have an environment where you're using like the logic that's not possible on the Bitcoin chain. So you can run your transactions in one environment and use that as your execution layer, and then settle on the Bitcoin chain, on the Bitcoin blockchain, and use that as your settlement layer. So there's all kinds of these hybrids that these things also sort of open up more to as a use case. So that's something to keep to pay attention to. Of course, we're thinking a lot of stuff about like Zen and X1 and more of that later. But one thing though, to like, if we think of X1, for instance, we have 1 second blocks. We changed it, by the way, today, I think, FYI, to 5 seconds, just to try out different stuff. But The chain works basically. It's pretty cool. And there's a lot of transaction happening there. But I want to mention that there's like immutable nature to the Bitcoin blockchain, that like, and one of them is the fact that it's on average 10-minute blocks. So that's one aspect in order to like if you're going to create some hybrids, that the aspect of production, validation, and security and all of that stuff matters. So if you're doing something on online environment, you're still going to be limited to the fact that Bitcoin has 10-minute blocks, etc. There's also like talks about like tokens on Bitcoin, etc. and stuff like that. And we've also like dream on the fact like how that could be done. Bridges, like how do you, like instead of having wrapped Bitcoin, which is basically like a honeypot, something that can be hacked or whatever, like, but the fact that how do you transfer value from one environment to the other and back in a trustless way, of course. That's something that's very interesting. Yield on sats, like this is also something very interesting. The fact that, you know, with Bitcoin, you don't have, you can't transfer value. Sorry, you don't have smart contracts, so therefore you can't earn yield on your Bitcoin. And there might be an opportunity for that to happen, etc. So, like with everything, this is how I look at it. This is just one model, and might be not like the best thing, but in everything we're doing, it's basically like, how do you create something? How do you distribute something? How do you swap something? And then the infrastructure around that, and then the storytelling that goes within everything. And I like, when I think of all these narratives, I think, especially when it comes to NFTs on Bitcoin, I think a lot how it was in the beginning. We were trying out different NFTs on Ethereum, because it's like the first thing with NFTs, the short stories is like, okay, wow, now I can make digital arts on the blockchain, more or less. But now I can make digital art as an NFT, as an artist. And then, wow, now I can make 10,000 of them, and I can make them generative, and each monkey can have a funny face in a different variety and different hats or whatever. So that was the hype. And then it was like, how do we distribute it to a large amount of people? And in there's so many cool things, like the whole creation of DAOs around it and the community aspect. Like you can create a community within seconds if you have a good story. But that technology was having its like iterations, how to find its way of doing it in a way that worked. Like hands up, everybody who was like in the middle of 3 a.m. In the middle of the night, trying to get that like stupid NFT, and you sat there and just pressed the button, like you wanted to be fast, only to like not get it because the site crashed, or some like super much faster like motherfuckers were faster to click the button than you, or whatever, you know. It's like the distribution part of it is very interesting. And I think that we've been doing a lot of different research, and these different communities are doing this like distributions. And already now, I think in the Zen community, we're so drilled in the aspect of fairness and the way how to be transparent and all of that. So it's like, I think we're light years ahead when it comes to money, in terms of doing this in a way that's so obvious for us right now. So that's very interesting when it comes to that aspect. We're going to do something. We are having these thoughts like, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about like Zen nights, which is going to be okay. I talked about that later. But then also the infrastructure and swapping. Like you have something and you want to be able to swap your Bitcoin NFT in a trustless way, and you need the infrastructure of that. So you need like wallets to be Ordinal ready, Ordinal aware. So to speak, be able to handle it, and so on and so forth. So, guys, it's just like, it's a lot, and you're very early when it comes into this. But these are the like eyes that I want you to understand. It's not just about a freaking poop emoji on the chain. it's so much more. It's so many possibilities. You have these two universes, the EVM world and the Bitcoin world, and they're like, okay, maybe there's something we can talk about, you know, and how do we do so? And just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Like we have to be humble for the task that this is something very interesting, exciting. So what does it mean for Zen? Well, ultimately, like when it comes to, I think, this is my personal opinion, I think we have the best story to be told, because like the story of first principles and getting back to the roots of what blockchain and crypto is all about, removing the middleman, removing the hierarchy, removing the motherfuckers who are just like having a lot of power and taking all the decisions, and introducing something more fair. It doesn't mean that like creators should still be able to like get paid, or if they do something. It doesn't mean that it's like communistic or whatever, but it can still be done in a way that's transparent, that doesn't give too much power to one person or whatever. It can be done in various ways. So I think we have the best story ever when it comes to first principles and amplifying first principles, like the Satoshi's vision, so to speak. So there's like a lot that we can do with the Zen community when it comes to fitting into this. And how do you do things? Well, the first step that I think and Jack, is important for people to understand is to get like just like do it with the baby steps, just to get familiarized. And this is why I did this video, because I want you to not primarily understand everything. If you're a normie, like you're going to be so confused with this video, but just for you to get like a scope, a grasp of all the different things, like what's the thing, where is it coming from, what do I do with it, like where can I find more information? Like if you start with what I've talked about here and move from that as a base, and then go off and study it more and more and more, that's a big that's a good a board for you to really, because things are moving so fast and you're easily going to get confused. But it's really, I think, going to give you an advantage in order to understand what goes on. So with Zen, this is something we're going to talk about very much more closely in the next few days. We are very excited that we are going to like introduce you to like our first approach to the Bitcoin world. And the first step for you is basically to get a wallet and to get a Taproot wallet, and then have some Zen and convert it into something that you then can get on the Bitcoin blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain. So therefore we teamed up with this super cool artist, Sunlight, who's made 100 different inscriptions. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in a day or two. We're going to present that thing. It's going to be super interesting, guys. Yeah, we're going to wait a little bit. But what I want to do now, I think that's like okay, I almost forgot. Now, just give me a second. Yeah, sorry guys, I get so excited. There's so many things. Let's make an inscription. Let's show you guys how to do it. It's very simple. It's very simple. Now I'm going to show you exactly how you can make an inscription on the Bitcoin blockchain. So you can do it too, and I want you to do it yourself as well. So let's see here. So we're just going to make a very simple inscription. So this is something that you guys can do yourself and feel like, wow, I inscribe. I'm going to show you how you can inscribe something on the chain that's going to be there forever. Okay, so it's pretty cool. So what you can do is you go to this site, gamma.io. And you just click here, create inscriptions. And they made it super simple. You can do this on OrdSwap as well. I can show you guys later. So basically, you just select your inscription types. You can choose an image, or let me know in the chat what should we write here. We can inscribe whatever. So we can display like let me know what you want to be included. Eat broccoli. Do push-ups. Write a message to our future selves. Eat broccoli. Do push-ups, and what else? Broccoli. Eat broccoli. Do push-ups. Unicorns rule. It's a delay also in the comment section, so I don't know what you're writing, because I'm using StreamYard, so I actually don't see it. Sleep 4 hours per day. Just write some arbitrary shit. Yeah, that will be fine. No, let's fuck all this. We do a joke. I have a dad joke. What's the difference between the people in Dubai and Abu Dhabi? Probably do you know what it is? The people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones, but the people in Abu Dhabi do. It's so funny. Okay, so with the first one to describe the dad joke on the Bitcoin blockchain, basically. So that's what we're gonna do. What's the difference between the people in Dubai and Abu Dhabi? The people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones, but the people in Abu Dhabi do. Okay. Now the next thing we're gonna do is choose like how fast we want this to be inscribed. So let's hope that they can be very fast. So we choose this, but this is important for you to know. This is like the sats per virtual byte, the fee that it costs. They take an inscription fee in order to make the service, and it includes. So here's the recipient Bitcoin address. So this is important, guys. Remember that I talked about the Taproot address. Okay, so when you need it to be a BC1P. If you don't have an address like that, and I'm actually going to open my my wallet now so I can see what my address is and copy it. So I go to receive. There, I'm going to share that wallet later. Let's just get this guy through. Bam, bam, bam. Okay, you should do this also, but we're not going to. We're not reading this. So now it wants me to send this amount of Bitcoin to this address. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you how you make a Bitcoin transaction with my wallet. But guys, we have special guests to the one and only, the man with the perfect skincare hygiene, the Titan of crypto.
So good to see you. I didn't want to miss the epic moment of your inscription action.
Awesome.
So let's do it. Let's inscribe something. What are you doing? Are you inscribing?
Yeah, I'm inscribing. So I'm gonna open your favorite wallet, the Sparrow wallet, and while I'm doing so, you can just go ahead and talk about whatever you want. But
yeah, I mean, there's the wallet, the Sparrow wallet. So let's see if we can have a flawless operation.
Right. So I'm taking this address. I copied it, and it told me that I'm gonna send pay to this address, and I'm gonna send. Oh, sorry. I can label it whatever I want. Dad joke, and then the amount. So amount too low. It's because it needs to be in Bitcoin. There we go. So be careful with these guys. So they're there, and now I want it to be fast. So remember, like, the more you are willing to pay for a transaction, the more likely it is that you're included in the next block. So now I'm probably overdoing it just because we are on air and wants this to happen. But what you can see here is I'm sending from one address. This is the transaction, this is the input, and these are the outputs. So this goes to the dad joke. This is my remainder, my change, which goes to another address that I have, and this is the feed to the miner. So I'm going to go ahead and create this transaction. I'm finalizing it and signing it. And then I have to just give my password. And now you can see it's being broadcasted. So that's how we make a Bitcoin transaction, basically. And here you can see it's unconfirmed. So now if I open this and then I need to just switch back to the yeah, here we go. Jack, tell us what's going on here. What happened?
What happened? This is the mempool window, or rather Explorer. It's very similar to Ethereum Explorer. What's happening is that on the top level of the page, we see blocks being mined right now. That's on the left side. On the right side, we see the blocks that have been mined. And we submitted a transaction with the fee rate of 36.9, so it should get into that block. And you can see the white triangle pointing to the beginning of a block. And that's where the transaction is likely. So you can see that it has higher priority because it's actually on the right side of the block. So if we click on that block, we will see the actual squares that represent all of the transactions that are being included in the block. They haven't yet been mined, but definitely they're there up for consideration. So hovering on every block actually will give you a little bit more details, like transaction ID, the amount that's being spent, and this and that. Now the block mining with Bitcoin can run for up to 30, 40 minutes. It doesn't need to be 10 minutes. It could be 1 minute. It's really quite random. So the longer we wait for the block to get mined, the higher the fees that we're going to see, because there will be more transactions trying to squeeze into the block. So in this particular block, we see that we've been waiting for at least 16 minutes, because on the right side of this block echelon, we see 16 minutes. So it may take another minute. It may take 5 minutes. You never know. Oh, something. No, not yet done. And also, if we point out to the total fees included in the block, it's $4,600 right now, down a little bit below. Yeah, right there. That's what people are paying to be included in the block that's coming up. Now, if we're lucky, we're going to get our transaction included in that block, and then it will get mined, it will get confirmed, and our ordinal will be inscribed. So this block is a lucky block. It looks like it's getting a lot of fees. There's a lot of fees coming in. And also, some of the low fee transactions, they're getting pushed out to the left, where the high price transactions are on the right. They're kind of, I would say, yellow and red in color. Those guys paid the most, so they will for sure be in the block.
Where so we are here somewhere.
Yeah, that's where they are. So if you hover on one of the blocks, maybe click on it, you'll see that it actually has quite a bit of SATs or SATs. So 300, is it 300? Yeah, 300 SATs per virtual block. Amazing. So somebody's paying $10, $30. And then all the way on the left side, those are the slackers, stingy transactions that don't want to pay a lot. So
did you make your transaction of 2 sats per virtual byte that come through yet? Because we made it like a few days ago.
Yeah, mine haven't haven't came through, haven't been mined in a block for at least 6 days now. So that
Okay.
was an experiment. I priced my transaction at 2 sats. It did not come. Did not come yet. So we'll see. Eventually it will. It will show up, but no luck so far. But it was just an experiment. It was like maybe $4, $3 transaction.
Well, I mean, this is so cool that you can see this live, how these blocks are being built. You remember in the beginning of the stream, we talked about like this miners are building these blocks and are incentivized to do so because they then get this Bitcoin to as a reward. And once any minute now, so this will happen in about 9 minutes. And here we can see also it's not 10 minutes exactly. It can vary quite a lot. When like a few weeks ago, we experienced like when we were trying to do it, we had to wait over 30 minutes to get our transactions included in a block as well.
Yeah, we were participating in an auction, in the Yuga Labs auction, and we were waiting for the last block to be mined. The auction was basically running out of time. It was 5 minutes left, and our block really took its time. We were hoping for 12 minutes, but I think it was actually being mined for 16. So we almost missed an auction, which was quite intense.
Yeah, that auction was, and while we're speaking of it, it was it was quite an interesting auction in the fact that it was very fun. It like the auction style was something that we're actually going to borrow a lot into the Zenites, but we're going to do it much better, of course, because what they did was basically the fact that in order to participate, you have to give up custody of your tokens into into their custody, basically. And if you didn't win, you got it back. If I understand it right, but we're going to do it a bit differently. Should we wait with that until a few days when we, or do you want to say something about how we are planning to do our auction with Zenites now?
I think we should. We probably can. So what we decided to do is we decided to have an auction for people to get into top 100 leaderboard levels based on the amount of Zen that they're willing to burn. So anybody who has Zen can participate. If you're not winning an auction, so if you're not selected by the amount of Zen you're willing to burn in top 100 by your scores, then all of your Zen is refunded. So in other words, you can play, and the only time you have to give up your Zen for an Ordinal is if you're on the leaderboard of the top 100 players. So that actually is probably really good idea, because if you're just playing, trying to see if you can actually get the Ordinal, and you're trying to outcompete people, if you get competed by the rest of the people that are playing, then you can simply get your Zen back. You don't get the Ordinal, but you don't lose anything. You just lose a little bit of time on participation, but maybe you learn, a few things which are interesting.
Yeah, that was a glimpse. I think that's all we say right now, and then we make a proper presentation of it in a day or two. What do you say? But yeah, it's going to be super fun. I'm super excited about it. I think we have a very interesting game theory going on there.
Yeah, so we actually collaborated with Zen Knight, who's one of the Zenian artists, and he drew all of the pictures that will be deployed as Ordinals. So we have inscribed most of them. We're just doing verification. We're also working on the Ethereum side's contract, allowing people to participate in that auction. So specifically, you come with your Zen, you approve Zen for burn, it gets transferred to a contract, it goes into a queue. Obviously, you have to provide your Taproot wallet. If you're in top 100 people that are essentially ordered by the top burners, you get an Ordinal. Obviously, the number 1, number 2, number 3, first top 5 ordinals are probably worth the most because the scoring is ordered by the amount of Zen burned. If you get pushed out, then you just get your Zen back. So no loss of any kind. You may lose some gas fees, but those will be minimal. So, and at the end, the ordinals will be airdropped to the top 100 players. So super cool, super fun. It's the first utility of Zen on Bitcoin blockchain. Somebody asked, burn or stake? So it's going to be a burn only if you win. If you do not win, you get it back. Staking did not really make sense because you're not really getting a yield of a sort. So we thought burn is just simpler. Prove a burn. Is it still going? No, it's just got indexed. Look at this. Or it didn't.
Yes.
Yeah, one confirmation.
So here we can see that our transaction got pushed into that block. But important to notify as well that it then needs a couple of confirmations as well. So
the question that I want to answer from the chat, will Ordinals get X1 airdrop? I think yes, because anything that burns Zen, any sort of Zenian participation in the Zen economy, we reward with X1 airdrops. All right, let's look at our inscription. Did it work? So yes, we got the confirmation.
Here we see the input, and it's like you can say an ugly octopus. So it's this is the remain. So I had some Bitcoin here, and the remainder got sent to this new address, which is my new address then, which is going to be used as input in another one. And here is the address to the inscription service,
and that's the fee. Okay, makes sense.
Right.
So let's see what happens to the inscription service that you used.
Oh yeah.
By the way, the last 2 blocks went really fast, 2 minutes, and then one after another. So those miners must be happy because they got their Bitcoin. They got their Bitcoin quick, within seconds.
So yes, I'm gonna like this. Here we go. So we pay them, and then we got to this page basically, and here we can see the some information about these transactions that we did. So we have the deposit address, the recipient address, the refund address, which is the same as the recipient address in our case, and then the inscription ID here. So this is the ID number for that inscriptions. So if we if we look at this, then we have our dad joke here on chain. So this is also like an explorer where you can see the data for that inscription. We can also use a site called ordinals.com. Let me share that, which is also kind of a block explorer. So if we paste our inscription ID here, we can see that this dad joke is fully now. It's going to be on everyone's nodes forever and always.
Yeah. So basically, you just spammed everybody's node and everybody's miner. You're a bad boy.
You're a bad boy. So this is also interesting. If we look in this explorer, guys, because we have the inscription number 459,000. So what does this mean? It means that there's only ever been less than 500 million inscriptions with ordinals on the Bitcoin blockchain. And my dad joke here is part of the first million. So if you hurry up, you need to get a Bitcoin wallet. And I suggest you use Sparrow, which I use, or that you, and we're going to go back to Sparrow. Jack, you're so good at Sparrow. We can talk about it. Or Xverse, which is more ordinal friendly in a way, where you can see your ordinals in it, or some other Bitcoin wallet.
Yeah. So let's take a look at your Sparrow wallet to see how the Ordinal landed into the wallet.
Absolutely, we're going to do that. I just want to show. So if you do that right now, you can be historic, guys. You can be part of the first 500,000, the 500,000 of inscriptions ever made. So I suggest,
it's only been live for a little bit more than a month, and
Right.
already just such a popular thing to do with Bitcoin.
And as we talked about, this is the last thing I want to mention with this, is you can see here in this Explorer, we can see that it says SAT here, right? So this dad joke is inscribed in this individual SAT on the chain. So if we go into this one, we can also see some interesting data. Here we see the SAT number, and here we can see that it's the number of the SAT. And I know, why did Jack say ooh? Because he looked at this. What does this mean, Jack?
This means that this Satoshi has been mined in 2010, which is kind of makes it an OG Satoshi. So imagine this: 13 years ago, literally 13 years ago, that Bitcoin that had, or set of Bitcoins that had that Satoshi has been mined. So you just found a penny from 1836. Probably worth more than a penny.
Right.
So definitely very cool that it's such an early Satoshi.
But this also means that like the aspect of rarity to Satoshis is pretty cool. I mean, this is something that's always been the case, but now it gets more attention. Like
Yeah.
individual sats, they can with ordinals get data attached to them, but also the fact that individual Satoshis, like if you have an inscription made on an OG sat, that's going to be made worth more. Suddenly, my dad joke is not so funny anymore, huh? You're not laughing anymore because it's an OG sat.
You know what I realized, though, Zensu?
How about you?
I realized that back in the day, people were mining 50 Satoshis at a time.
Right.
And now we're mining 6. So that actually makes the latest Satoshis more rare.
That's true. you just live on stream made my dad joke.
So on one hand, it's really interesting that it's from such a long time ago, but on the other hand, what if you were inscribing something that was produced yesterday?
Right.
That's definitely 10 times more rare because we went from 50 Bitcoin per block to 6.125 or something like that.
Right. So
at least 9 times more rare is to have the recent dates versus the old dates. But the old dates are cool too.
So let's go back to Sparrow and let's see what we just did from the wallet perspective.
Yeah, let's look at it.
There we go. So here we have it. And I was in the Send tab. Here we can see transactions. So what happened here?
So what happened looks like the transaction has been confirmed at least a few times, and you can see it on the pie. Would be more interesting to look at the UTXOs because that's where your Ordinal has landed. So the one that has 7,780 Satoshis, that's where it is, and the reason why we think that that's where it is because it has under 10,000 Satoshis. So that's how usually the set of Satoshis get used. And we can also double check this. If you go to output and you right click on the output, yeah, right there, right click or just click, or there will be like a little drop down thing.
You can't see it, but I see it.
Okay, so drop down and then you will select, what are you selecting? Transaction output?
Yeah, copy transaction output. So it's new transaction, send transaction, freeze UTXO, or copy transaction output.
Okay, so we're gonna copy the transactions output, and then we can put it back into ordinals.com, and that's how we can tell that's the same ordinal and the same UTXO. Now, for those of you guys that don't know what UTXO is, it stands for unspent. That's the U. TX, that's transaction, and O stands for output. So unspent transaction output. And by the way, look at the value. The value matches the number of Satoshis, right? And inscription, you don't see it, but it is there. If you click on the black space way above value, it should be in there. Just yeah. So there we go. You clicked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's make your screen smaller and maybe highlight that middle black part. Or you can go to the contents link or a preview link. It will show there. There we go. It just showed up. You see it? Yeah. So it is the same ordinal.
Yeah, it's opening up a new tab, but there's
yeah, the other tab already shows it, so it's all good.
Yeah.
You can maybe zoom in so that people can see that it's the same thing. So anyway, the transaction output from the Sparrow wallet is what allowed us to see that that's indeed is what got inscribed.
So that's very interesting. Now let's go back to Sparrow. But before we do, or do you want to continue in Sparrow? We should also mention like a few other. I just want to mention this. Go to docs.ordinal.com, guys. Here you can read more about ordinal theory and stuff like that.
Yeah. And the very good guide that I used to set up the wallet was from the handbook under Sparrow. So if you go to section 741, Sparrow wallet, down below, a little bit lower, 741.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that page actually shows you in the very minute detail how to set up your wallet, how to get your passwords done, pretty much everything. It also gives you warnings, like, for example, be very careful spending funds from the same wallet. Make sure you freeze your UTXO so they're not going to get spent, so that you don't lose your ordinals. Otherwise, you could actually select all of the UTXOs. If you select all, there's a function there, select all or click max. That will aggregate all of your ordinals, all of your UTXOs, and send it to someone else. And it's going to be, well, you're going to lose them all. So that's not great. But anyway, that document actually goes through how to freeze, how to send, how to select UTXO, to if you're planning to sell it, that sort of thing.
And here I have a Zenzu inscription number 111693, OG.
Yeah,
was in the first 100,000 inscriptions. This is also an interesting project, Open Ordex. We met this guy in Denver. Very cool. It's like a swapping platform for ordinals, and you can do something called partially signed Bitcoin transactions. So that's very cool. What can we say about this, Jack?
Yeah, so this is DeFi on Bitcoin blockchain for pretty much the first time there's actually utility. You can create a sale order, you can load your ordinal inscription, and then you can put it up for sale, and the buyer will have to sign a transaction with their own wallet, even like they don't even have to visit the site. Everything's done on chain, trustlessly, nobody gets your keys, that sort of thing. Should we try maybe signing a transaction just to see if it works?
Yeah, maybe they're doing some updates to the site right now, or something.
A little slow, isn't it? Yeah, list for sale. You're gonna have to put your, I guess transaction, not transaction ID, but the ordinal ID. But it looks like they may be down. It's the site really came about maybe 2 weeks ago. So they're still working on it, trying to make it better. But there's another one called OrdSwap. So maybe we should look at OrdSwap, which is another.
Right. So here we have OrdSwap.
Yeah, that's another service where you can actually buy and sell and do all kinds of things.
Yeah, Tanya's thing says it looks like she's referring to Open Ordex. It's almost like a Curve had this super OG gaming UI. It's very cool with Open Ordex. But OrdSwap is pretty cool. This marketplace, you can buy, sell.
So
right from there.
Click on the wizard. Click on the wizard. Let's see what. So the wizard is for sale. It's number 70, and it's worth 10 Bitcoin, which is pretty incredible. Does it belong to a collection? Is there a collection of wizards?
Yes, there is. There's two different projects with it. It's the let's see. There's the Taproots and the Bitcoin wizards.
I think wizards misspelled.
Wizards. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, those are the collections. So let's click on that collection. Let's actually see if people are doing anything. So obviously they look very, very similar. It's kind of like auto-generated art. Should we look at the activity just to see?
Yeah, this is the activity.
That's the activity. Okay, so people are buying those or swapping those for 0.06 Bitcoin, which is not too bad. Good money.
So yeah, this has like some way to go for it to be like fully functioning as we have on. But a lot is happening very fast. So here we can see the different collections are picking up fast. So you can also inscribe. If you go to inscribe, you can decide to inscribe. Can't you do that? You can inscribe a whole collection at once.
Yeah, you can. So if you go to inscribe and then it's supposed to show you, maybe it's not going to work until, oh yeah, there we go. So bulk mint live. If you click there
you can just,
and you can drag and drop many images, and then you just pay once and everything just works.
Here we go. Does Ordinals provide royalty to the owner?
No, because not yet anyway. There isn't a marketplace that gives royalties, but eventually they may develop it. Right now, I haven't seen it.
Do you think you'll develop something like sell Ordinal receive in Zen, since you're thinking of using Zen to inscribe Ordinal? Don't get him started, guys.
Yeah, we had a very deep discussion last night, and the thought was, and I actually tweeted it today, the thought was, what if you could use Zen to inscribe Ordinal on Bitcoin blockchain? So use Zen's contract on either Ethereum or X1, specify your Taproot ID, pay with Zen, give the contract the URL for the content, and everything just happens automatically on the back end, and you get your Ordinal on the Bitcoin chain. And you pay with Zen. So that will actually make more utility for Zen in terms of inscription on chain. By the way, important to note, so OrdSwap, the page we're looking at right now, that's just their web app. So their web app does all of the inscriptions and everything. They technically own all of your Ordinals before they send it to you. So that's kind of like the gotcha there, that they first inscribe it and they take your money, and then you hope that they send it back to your address. So what we're thinking to do with Zen is that we would let you pay with Zen on the Ethereum smart contract or X1 smart contract. Load the URL or give the URL and specify the Taproot address. And everything just done through like the DeFi application. And if you don't get one, you probably should be able to get your Zen refunded. So that's the goal for the future, is to do it as trustlessly as possible.
Right, that's how we do it, baby. Yeah, let's see if we have some more questions, guys. 1.4 trillion ETH and burned, 12.75%, and it's all just started. Eddie Ross has his numbers correct. If SHIB or ETH burned that, people would be gasping. Zen barely even started. Inflationary only.
By the way, something about the NFTs on Ethereum proof of work. I see VV Zen on Ethereum POW up 75%. Believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And did we announce anything beginning of the day yesterday? Because it started to rally yesterday.
Really? I don't think so.
Okay. Well, surprise, surprise. It's actually up 75% for 24 hours. And by the way, I also tweeted that Ethereum proof of work Zen is #1 token when it comes to number of transactions. Which is super awesome.
Yeah, here you can see. Oh wow.
Yeah, look at that. And look at the right hand side of the screen where it says 24 hours. The green percentage numbers.
Oh wow, that's insane. But is this chart? Do you think they made the chart like upside down or something? Because people said it was going to be down forever, the token.
It must be upside down.
Okay.
Or maybe some sort of a special log function has been applied to it.
Right. So we can basically now we have deployed the NFTs, Zen Torrent and ZenStake on 5 different chains. So we want to accelerate the deployment a little bit and get it going. So we have we're thinking about deploying on 2 already this week, if it's possible, on ETH-POW and some other chain as well. Just give people the possibility to mint first principles NFTs on all the chains.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking in terms of days? ETH-POW has a block limit of 30 million, like Ethereum. So it should have the same rarity chart just as Ethereum. So that means 128 VMUs, basically. We need
By the way, I just sent you a link in the private chat. Maybe bring it up. It has a very good overview of the POW swap. So POW swap is the DEX. I think it's a clone of the Pancake. But here you can actually see #1 is VV Zen, #1 by trades. Wait, go back. And look, Hex is #3 by trades.
Yeah.
But with all due fairness, Hex trades with greater volume. But there's more transactions happening with Zen. So we win by transactions here. But still, it's good to be on the top of the list because that's the default view. People come to POW swap and they want to see what they can trade on Ethereum proof of work, and the first thing they see is Zen, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Things are happening. So. Yeah, what else? I think. Do you want to mention something more with Sparrow? Do you want to?
Yeah, I think it's a really good wallet. It's open source. It runs pretty well. It gives you clear indication where your UTXOs are. It also kind of like I would say an educational tool.
Exactly.
The one that you can actually learn.
Yeah.
By the way, click on addresses. So what happened here is that first we had the one address on the very top, the one that ends with D4G. That one became 0. The address that we have received our ordinal is the next one. So 7780 sats. That's where the ordinal is. Yep. And then the change address is where you get your dad joke change. So you had more money in your wallet, and what happened is the Bitcoin blockchain anonymized your transfer by emptying the first address,
Right.
putting 7,700 sats into the second receiving address, and then the change address got the rest of the funds.
It's like this. It's like you're going to pay for a banana with a $100 bill, and you're going to get some change with that. So you're putting that change in your other pocket.
Yeah, it's still you, just your other pocket.
Unless it's a super expensive banana.
Or it could be a purse.
But you're right. I absolutely love this wallet because it's like I just created this wallet today. I'm gonna destroy it because you shouldn't be this transparent with everything that goes on in your wallet, guys. Think of that. Keep your keys safe but here you can also see it creates a new tab for that specific transactions. So we can see basically all the data for that transaction.
Yeah. By the way, click on the output 0.
Wallet because it's educational. You see. Sorry, what the output view? This?
Yeah. So this is good too. So what happened here is that this transaction has two outputs. One goes to your receiving address, which is the blue one.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is your remainder that lands into your change address. So most of your funds went back to your wallet, just got switched to a different address. And if you click on output 1 and output 0, you actually see the what exactly happened there. So click on this one. Yeah. So that one you can see it's called change. That's where the remainder of the sats went to.
So how do you avoid to accidentally spend it by freezing it?
Yeah. So let's go to UTXO. And then let's right click, and there will be an option called freeze, I guess.
Yeah, you can't see this now, guys, but if I right click on this line on the output, there is view transaction, send transaction, freeze UTXO, and copy transaction output. So I'm gonna
So good. So now that you have frozen it, you can see that it became grayed out. So you can see there's a very, very big change in how they look.
Yeah. Then in the native protocol, the burn function is there in the 400 lines of code, which just allows for all these DeFi to happen. Yeah, Jack is the titan of crypto. We're gonna make Jack the titan of crypto, guys. What do you say?
Yeah, CryptoKitty.
The CryptoKitty.
Yeah, I actually own a CryptoKitty. I still have one.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I have one of the original CryptoKitties, like a generation 1 or 2, something like.
Do you think people in 10 years are gonna say, "I actually have a NFT"?
Well, I have it. I don't know what to do with it, but it's in my wallet.
I think
maybe I'll stake it for yield. You get some kittens.
Yeah, exactly. What was the utility of your CryptoKitty?
Just it commemorates the first gas war on Ethereum.
Right.
Ethereum became useless, like completely useless. The gas was 350. I mean, thankfully the Ethereum itself was like maybe $50, but still, it was quite useless. So just way too many people playing with CryptoKitties.
Guys, just a little feedback. And prepare your last questions before we close down the stream. But today we've talked about a lot. Okay, remember we started here. We didn't even know what an ordinal was or who it was or what the hell. And now we've talked about all of this. I think it was a very highly informative introduction to many. Hopefully, we talked about what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain for those who don't know, ordinal theory. What are ordinals? Fungibility aspect, poop emojis on Bitcoin, basically, ordinals as NFTs, UTXO model versus account model, how is an ordinal transferred, immutability, scarcity, and storage, Taproot made this all possible, the upgrade, different narratives. There's so many things going on right now, guys. There's so many things, and it's all about understanding the narratives and how we can participate and contribute to the space, which we already have in so many ways in the EVM world. There's no denial about that, and we're doing it in the right way. And we're light years ahead of many when it comes to some fundamental aspect. And they are bound with their design decisions they made long time ago. They're trying to polish it and making it look glorious. We don't have to do that because Zen protocol is absolutely amazing. And then we showed you how how you can inscribe something on the Bitcoin blockchain forever and ever and ever, and make it count, guys. When you do this, don't just do something because you're going to tell your grandchildren's grandchildren in 100 years. I inscribed something. You can go check up on this ordinals.com, my inscription. It was my first, and it was before the 500,000 ordinals ever described. You don't want it to be some bad dad joke or something. I would never have done that dad joke if that was my first inscription, okay? So make sure that it's something that counts. Think about it. And then show it on Twitter. Say, I'm an ordinal expert. I'm inscribed on the Bitcoin blockchain forever. Everybody knows me, and show everybody else and teach everybody else how to do it. You're going to be a very cool guy. So a lot, guys, a lot. And the next thing we're going to talk about when it comes to the Bitcoin segment is something we do as a community on the Bitcoin blockchain. So we teamed up with Zen X-Knight, and he has designed 100 awesome artworks, and this is going to be unique. We're going to talk about this. Give it a we have him here in the chat right now. We're going to do a separate stream where we describe how it's going to work, and then you guys have some time to prepare to participate. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's historic. There's only 100 of them. There's a competition in order to get one. Yeah, guys. So what do you say, Jack?
Yeah, super awesome and very exciting. I think the future for X1 is to be integrated with all of the blockchains, including Bitcoin blockchain, which is now there's a way to do it. So we're definitely going to be explore the ways to get it done, to bring more economic energy to X1 so that you can stake your XN tokens, play with the Ordinals marketplaces right there on X1 on chain. So just very excited about that.
It's like, in a way, it's like the 11th chain for us.
Yep.
Right. We can see it as that. And there's so many, there's a new idea every day from this man here to your right, guys. We're having a lot of fun brainstorming about the different concepts and what to do. Where's my napkins? I'm running out of. So yeah, guys. Jack, thank you so much for joining me on the stream.
Yeah, thanks for making it easy and going through all the demos. And don't forget, guys, Ethereum Proof of Work NFT launch is on Wednesday. So
all right, we're doing it on Wednesday. So we have some rarity charts to prepare and post in the community and so on and so forth. And if all goes well, we might even do one more this week on Friday or something. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, so get your VVZen ready because there will be some unicorns for grabs.
Awesome.
All right.
Yes. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much, Xenians.
Thank you, Xenians. Chat with you soon.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.